What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, to talk about other factors involved in the markets, which you should be watching for as time goes on. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon, in just about 12 days from now. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So as far as SPY is going, in my video from yesterday, I predicted that SPY would see a bounce very close to the 585 area. We were expecting a test of about 588 to 589. That's exactly what happened so far. So we did call out this bounce very nicely. I also mentioned to everyone that we should be looking for a nice bounce on Tesla and for the broader markets. And in my morning video, I talked about how Nvidia had some bad news that came out involving chips, but then we expected a bounce back up to about the 140 area, which is also what panned out. So I'm not trying to brag when I say that, but I'm just trying to tell you the truth that we did call out the majority of these moves. And now the market's about to enter a very, very critical place. That's why I want to talk about some short-term catalysts before I break down more details about these markets. Just know this, the market was quite flat for today. We saw finance in the flat, same thing with retail. Some stocks did try to run very nicely, like Tesla and Google. Apple was a little bit in the green, and then we had Nvidia more in the red. We had all this news that came out. So the market was kind of sandwiched between two main pieces of news. There was good news for Tesla. Tesla saw some news about how the new administration has announced that they are going to be deregulating for AI development and help make things easier. Elon Musk also talked about why he thinks that's a good piece of news. So that was bullish news for Tesla when it comes to the AI development and the development of the robotaxi. But there was some bad news that came out for Nvidia about the fact that there are reports suggesting that many of their chips are overheating, which could affect their servers. That's not the best of news, at least for them. Now, I have not heard Nvidia confirm that. I haven't heard Nvidia say anything yet about that. So we can't say for sure if this is 100% confirmed, but because reports were saying that, we did see Nvidia dip a bit. So the market was kind of flat in the beginning. Then we got this nice little push, which is what we were expecting, only to come back down and close a little bit in the green, but not bad whatsoever. The majority of stocks are flat, with some exceptions, some runners. Now, this week is going to be very interesting. We have some earnings coming out for tomorrow. Tomorrow we have Walmart, Lowe's, Xpeng, and a few others announcing their earnings. More retail, but nothing too crazy. And then Wednesday is when things get very, very insane. In the morning, we have Target, which is a big one for retail, TJ Maxx, Wix, and a few more like Neo. That's going to happen Wednesday morning. And then after market close, we have the big one. We have Nvidia announcing its earnings. This is going to be having a big effect on the way the market ends up moving. So get ready, guys. Nvidia is a big market shifting catalyst. And whenever they announce for earnings, is going to be affecting the entire semiconductor industry. It's going to be affecting Nvidia. It's going to be affecting the whole market. So get ready for a big move by the time we get to like Wednesday/Thursday. The market's going to be pretty wild then. For tomorrow, we just have very, very minor data. Before the market opens, we just have some housing data. And besides that, everything else is very, very quiet. For Wednesday, which is going to be on Wednesday as well, which is 2 days from now, just know the data is also going to be kind of quiet as well. But then Thursdays when we have more jobs numbers, and Fridays when we have more PMI reports. So the data is going to be quiet until Thursday. Just keep that in mind. Besides that, for the fear and greed index, right now we're quite neutral. The market was getting closer to fear only to get bought back up. So now this is in the middle. We saw the market dip a bit only to get bought back up, and now we're stuck in the middle. Momentum is back to greed as we saw some buyers defending. And then the puts and call option ratio is starting to slow down. The rates at which puts are being bought is slowing down because now there's less puts being bought, which is why the ratio is back to neutral. Volatility is also neutral. We're not really seeing that big of a shift in the VIX. It is dipping a little bit. And overall, the market is still holding up quite well. So what is my prediction for the markets? What do I think is going to pan out? Honestly, there's a bit of a downtrend on SPYs making lower highs here, but now we have a big test that's coming right over here. So on the 4-hour time frame, we have the 589 area as our main resistance. If we break that, we could be trying to fill the gap above, taking us closer to about the 592 area. If we don't break past 589, though, there is a risk of us returning back down to these lower levels, taking us back down to this imbalance around 586.25. Let me put it this way. There are two gaps on SPY, okay? If we break past 589, okay, and we hold above that for a day, I think we could easily fill this gap into the 593s. A 4-point move to the upside is coming if we manage to close above 589 and hold above it. But if we kind of pop a bit and reject and we end up losing the 585 support, we close below that, there is going to be a bigger risk of 583 than 580 to come down to fill this lower gap. Now, I think that for tomorrow, there's going to be an attempt to kind of like dip a bit before we try to bounce. And we're going to see a lot of sideways price action. But whether or not we fill this upper gap or the gap down below depends on Nvidia's earnings. So don't be too confident quite yet. Could the market rally to new highs? It's possible, but be careful because it depends on what we get from Nvidia. So I think that's going to be the next major market moving event. So what do I see for the levels? What is my prediction for tomorrow? Let's talk about that now, and I'll talk about the other charts. So for tomorrow, what I anticipate is we're going to dip a little bit in the morning. We might gap down a little bit. And then I think that there's going to be another attempt to get to 589. We'll have to see if SPY could break 589 or not. If we don't break it, we're just going to continue to consolidate. And if we do break it, we turn more bullish. But I presume the most likely possibility is a dip and then a bounce for some consolidation tomorrow in this range. And then we will see the big market moving catalyst, which is Nvidia. Can the market pump approaching its earnings, or do we get a dump? I think that for now, the odds do favor the market wants to push a little bit more for 589 plus. We might try to push, but I'm not as confident about us closing above it yet. I think we just have to wait for Nvidia's earnings to get confirmation. So for now, look for a little bit of a dip in the morning, then a bounce back up to 589 and some consolidation as time goes on. For ES is once again in a very, very interesting place. This dipped quite a bit all the way down towards 58.75. And I think that there is a chance this is going to continue to accumulate. So if we end up losing the support right over here around this 5900 area, we turn more bearish and we look for 58.70 as our main support. If we're bullish, you want to be looking for a pushback up to about 59.39, taking us right back up. I think the 4 hour is showing some life here. So ES looks like it's going to be dipping a little bit before it attempts to push higher for the 59.40 area. With ES potentially pushing, this could help SPY, but just know that there's a bit of a divergence between ES and SPY right now, which is very unusual. It rarely ever happens. But this is now suggesting that because this still could get bought back up, this could help SPY to some extent, but maybe not to the same extent it typically does. That's what I'm seeing for those two. Let's talk about the QQQ. I know people are getting requests for this. Just know that for the QQQ, okay, we have this tough resistance at this 500 area. And the main support to watch for is all the way down here around 496. If we hold above 500, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 503 to fill this imbalance and reach these EMAs. If we end up not holding above 500, there's a risk of us coming back down towards 495. So we'll just have to see how things end up going. On the daily time frame, just know this. If we manage to hold above 500, this is going to be our 200 EMA. 503 is going to be where we have this like gap resistance. If that breaks as well, there's a big gap to fill all the way up towards like 508. So just keep that in mind, guys. If we get a rug pull with Nvidia's earnings, on the other hand, and we don't hold above 500, we're going to be looking at 495 as the main support area. If that does not hold, we could be dumping all the way down towards the lower 490s to fill this gap down here. So just keep that in mind, guys. We could go either way depending on how earnings goes for Nvidia. But as of right now, when you look at the chart, we do favor upside a little bit more. You can see we're turning on the 4 hour and we're seeing some buyers defending it. So I do anticipate tomorrow morning we dip a little bit. It's about the 498 area. And then we'll see if we get a bounce and try to make our way back up above 500. There's a chance it kind of dips and bounces and tries to push a little bit higher. If we break 500, then I'm going to be looking for 503 as our potential target. Today we weren't really able to hold that nicely above it. We did kind of push a bit only to consolidate. So there's a chance it dips a bit and tries to bounce and makes its way to the lower 500s for tomorrow. And then Nvidia's earnings is going to be the next catalyst to affect things. For NQ, we look a little bit more bullish. As long as we don't lose 20,530, the chart is favoring. It's going to dip a little bit, then try to bounce and make its way back up towards this wick around this 20,725 area. So I anticipate a little bit of downside for the 20,575 area, then a bounce back up towards 20,750. Look for a dip and a bounce as the most likely possibilities, and then we'll see what happens from there. For other factors, we have Tesla, the big one. I think Tesla is very bullish, but we might start off with a small dip before it tries to bounce because of this gap down here and the fact that we are losing some momentum. We already gapped up so nicely and we are forming kind of like some wicks here. So what tends to happen is you do tend to see a little bit of a dip that could be coming. We could try to grab liquidity around the 330 area, and we'll see if that holds or not. If it does not hold, I'm expecting 326 followed by 322. I would like to see this dip before it tries to bounce to form like an inverse head and shoulders. That would be a lot more healthy in my opinion. But overall, I do expect a bounce on Tesla. I think it's going to run towards the end of the year. So keep that in mind, guys. Let's see if Tesla dips just a little bit more towards the lower 330s, maybe even below that to fill this gap. We'll have to see about that before it tries to bounce and starts this rally back up to the 360s over the next week or so. All right, so keep that in mind. A dip and a bounce is the most likely possibility for Tesla. For Nvidia, Nvidia's on a bit of a downtrend. I do anticipate it's going to try to push a little higher with the markets. Might consolidate around this 140 area, then eventually start pushing to this imbalance towards 142.25. We'll see if we break or not, but that's what I'm anticipating is the most likely possibility. So we'll just have to see how things end up going. There's a good chance that Nvidia tries to push, so give this more time, and we'll see what happens from there. For Bitcoin, we're just consolidating between this range at 92,000's resistance, not to mention 88,000's our support, going back and forth and back and forth. We're not really doing much, but I think we're going to likely just be stuck for now. Bitcoin might try to push because we're trying to hold our 20 EMA. So it might see an attempt for 92,000 and come back down and consolidate. So give it some time to see how things end up going. With that being said, for other factors out there, we have Apple. Apple's trying to hold the support where this very, very key trend line happens to be. So I think we might be dipping closer towards this 226 area before it tries to bounce. So give this more time to develop. If we lose 226, though, we're looking for a dip back down towards the 224s. If we break resistance at 230, we're looking for a pushback up for 231. Look for a dip to about 226 before it tries to bounce as the most likely possibility, and we'll see what happens after that. I want to call out NEO as another ticker that's worth mentioning because although we had this head and shoulders, which we called out very, very nicely, just know that the share price is looking bullish. And I said this yesterday, we should be bouncing since we have earnings on Wednesday. So I think that there is potential as long as we don't lose 4.66. This chart is favoring this imbalance fill for 4.88 as the most likely possibility. So watch to see if that ends up being the case. For Netflix, as long as Netflix does not lose this new support that's been established at 840, we're favoring 855 or higher. It looks more bullish now. The reason for that is because there's been a big announcement that there's going to be another stream that's going on Christmas Day. Netflix is going to be streaming an NFL game. And on top of that, I think Beyonce is going to be performing. So that's some big news, guys. That's going to get a lot more attention. With these live streams that Netflix is doing, it's getting a lot more hype from investors. That's what's helping the share price hold up. We were dipping after the Paul and Tyson match that happened. We were dipping a bit, but then we got bought back up after this news came out. So that's some very, very bullish news. And I think that we could continue to push higher, especially as ad revenue is going to increase with all these big events for the fourth quarter. So this could be bullish, and this is why Netflix is going to be pushing for 850 plus or higher very soon. For CELH or Celsius, we're trying to base at this 25 area. As long as we don't lose 25, I think the chart is favoring a little balance for 26.7. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. So give this the time that it needs. For other factors out there, we have Supermicro. We have 25.14 as our main support. As long as we're above this, this is favoring upside. And I think that we could continue to push as time goes on. We've got a very, very nice bounce down. I don't think we're done quite yet. Look for a dip tomorrow morning and continuation higher. As long as we're above 30, we're going to be looking for the next area all the way up here. 36 could be coming than 40, which is pretty wild. There is a lot more upside potential for the 30s, so I see some more upside for Supermicro as we approach earnings. Another reason why there's upside is because of the news that just came out about the fact that they basically prevented delisting, which is very, very awesome news for them. Good news, at least moving forward. Palantir saw a little bit of a dip because we had some negative news that came out. The negative news dropped this, and unfortunately was not able to hold at the resistance that it was at. So because of that, we need to try to get back above 61.21. If we fail to do so, there's a risk of it hitting 58, then 56.6. I think we might be dipping towards the 58s before it tries to bounce, so give this some time to develop, and we'll see what ends up happening from here. For Rivian is just range bound here. We have this support around this 9.7 area. We have resistance around this 10.5 area, not to mention 11.14. We've been going back and forth and back and forth. I think we might try to rebound on Rivian for a 10.55 test, but overall it's going to be very, very flat. For SoFi, we look more bullish as we're holding our 20 EMA very nicely. As long as we don't lose 13.57, I think we favor a push for about 14.5, so it might try to bounce right here. The Russell is trying to base. It's going to try to base between 26.75 to 28 in this range. I think it's going to try to base. We're going to be looking for a bounce back up towards 32 or 232, very, very soon. So look for a small dip to about 226.75 to 228, a little bit lower before it tries to bounce. I do think there's potential in this. Watch it accumulate as time goes on. Now, AMD, obviously this thing is on a bit of a downtrend, but just know this, guys, we have this very, very nice looking falling wedge that's been developing for quite some time. I think that what's going to happen is we are going to get bought back up very soon. And I think that there might be a bounce coming back up towards 139.7, especially if Nvidia does well for earnings. Then we're looking for 143.5 as our next target. We'll see which way we end up going, but just keep that in mind. AMD is looking pretty good here as long as we don't lose, um, 126. The odds are favoring 131 as the most likely possibilities. For Coinbase, we look more bullish as long as we don't lose 298 to 300. We are favoring a pushback up for 338 as the most likely possibility. Amazon's on a bit of a downtrend here. We need to reclaim 204. Otherwise, I see a risk of us coming back down towards 200 flat as the most likely possibility. Meta's on a bit of a downtrend. We need to reclaim 564. Otherwise, I could see this thing dipping towards 550, eventually 545. So keep that in mind. Microsoft's on a bit of a downtrend. We need to try to reclaim 420. Otherwise, it might just consolidate in this 412 to 416 area. I think we just consolidate for now, but there could be a bigger move once we get Nvidia's earnings. Just look for some consolidation for the time being. Google may also dip just a little bit. It might make its way down back towards 174 before it tries to bounce. Just keep that in mind. There might be a small dip for 174, and we'll see what happens after that. GameStop looks a little bit weaker if we don't hold above 26.5. I do anticipate a dip to about 25 flat. AMC is also looking more bearish. Going to be looking for 4.25 to be our target. DJT needs to hold above 31.25. Otherwise, I see that this could be dipping to about 29.5. This is favoring upside a little bit more. It wants to go up to about 34 in my opinion. The VIX is flat right here. Will the VIX dip to fill this gap below and then bounce, or will it try to break out here? We need to break, 16.43 to turn bullish. If we lose 15.42, we turn more bearish. We're stuck in the middle for the VIX. It does look a little bit weaker, though. It does favor downside a bit more, which could mean the market has upside potential. We're just waiting for that to pan out. The 10-year is dipping, which tends to be a little bit more bullish for the markets. We'll see if 4.38 breaks. And then the dollar is also dipping, which tends to be bullish for the markets. So we'll have to see how this ends up going. With that being said, guys, my general view of the market is that we're going to basically see a little bit of a dip in the morning and attempt to break past this resistance at 589. We'll see if SPY can break that or not. If we don't break it, we're just going to consolidate near 589 to 587, like in that range. But if we do break 589, we're looking for a push towards the 590 plus area. So I do see a little bit more upside coming, maybe consolidation, so give it some time. But nonetheless, the market is favoring a bounce a little bit more. Whether we get a big bounce or a big dump will also depend on Nvidia's earnings. We're waiting for that. But for now, going into tomorrow, we do anticipate some upside. So with that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a great rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow before market open to give you guys another update. Until then, take care and peace out.